welcome everyone to our rolling warehouse webinars. You'll notice that there's a Q&A button at the bottom. That widget is where you can click and put your questions throughout the webinar. We do encourage you to submit some questions. If time allows, we'll try and answer them as we're going along. If time does not allow, while we're doing the roundtable discussion, we do have a Q&A session at the end. If we can answer the questions online, we will. If not, we'll try to tackle them at the Q&A. I just also want to remind everybody that this webinar is being recorded, and we will be sharing the recording with you within the next day or two following this webinar. So for today's agenda, I'd like to begin by introducing some of our speakers. So we have with us Matt McCallum, who's our Senior Director of Sales at Diabsolut. We have Stephen Sugamar, who is our Manager of Solutions Consulting. We also have Yvette Ross, who's with Financial Force. She's a Product Marketing Director. And we have Edward Wolf, who's the Principal Solution Consultant at ServiceMax. And lastly, we have Angelique Tofteru, who's the Director of Solution Engineering at Salesforce. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Angelique.
Thank you so much, Erica. As you heard, my name is Angelique Tofteru, and I lead a team of field service solution engineers at Salesforce. I've been at Salesforce around 3.5 years. And shortly after joining, I was introduced to Diabsolut to partner on a joint sales effort. And since day one, I've always been extremely impressed by what they bring into each and every engagement. Diabsolut has been a Click software and a Salesforce partner for over 20 years and a Financial Force partner since 2014. Their experience is evident in how much value they bring to the table when partnering in each and every engagement. They're hyper-focused on customer success, and they're experts at delivering on some of the more complex areas in both the field service and Financial Force ecosystem. They also do this very, very well. They have a proven success record with a customer satisfaction score of 4.9 and a 5-star average rating in reviews. So it is a great pleasure for me today to introduce Diabsolut.
Thank you, Angelique. I'll hand it over to our moderator today, who's Matt. Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about the rolling warehouse solution and why we're here today?
Thank you, Erica. And Angelique, thank you for those very kind words. It's always a pleasure engaging with you and your teams to drive that customer success. So that's what we're all here to do. I want to just take a quick moment, Erica, as you said. I want to thank our partners and the subject matter experts for taking the time with us here on the webinar. And most importantly, I want to thank the attendees. We hope that this session drives value, and we're going to gear it towards hopefully something that drives conversation in a format that is just that, very conversational. And we're here to talk about the rolling warehouse. And so at a high level, what is that? It's a solution that Diabsolut has brought together. It's underpinned by 3 products from the Salesforce ecosystem, the first of which in the center of the solution really being Salesforce Field Service. Salesforce Field Service is the Gartner Magic Quadrant top right product in terms of its capability and functionality. And it's going to handle everything a field service organization is going to need to operate and do it very, very well with robust capabilities well beyond some of the competitive landscape. To that, we add from an operational perspective a product called OPI from Financial Force. OPI is order management, procurement, and inventory. And that's the engine that's going to drive and manage that whole order and inventory management process. This is functionality that typically would be thought of as an ERP type solution. You're going to hear a lot about integrations as we have a discussion today. What we are seeing is bringing this capability forward onto a single platform and creating that object model alongside SFS or Salesforce Field Service is oftentimes eliminating or at least reducing costly integration points. And by doing that, we're taking out dollars and we're reducing risk. And lastly, ServiceMax Asset 360. The use case for this solution is often underpinned by a requirement to service assets that are owned in the field and often under entitlements and associated with SLAs. And ServiceMax Asset 360 does an incredible job of managing that, again, on the same platform. So it is a single platform to view and manage anything and everything to do with your order, inventory, field service requirements, extending right out to the theme of driving customer service excellence. It's mobile and connected, and you'll hear plenty more about that as we talk through the solution today. You're going to see prompts, intelligent automation. We'll get into themes around analytics and what we can do by bringing all of this functionality forward onto the Salesforce platform, which is very user-friendly, very connected, and very configurable. That's a pretty good intro, I believe, from my standpoint. I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, who is going to get right into a demo, and we'll start to do some show and tell and really look at what this solution is driving. Stephen?
Wonderful. Thank you, Matt. And let me just pop up my screen here, so bear with me. Wonderful. I believe you should all be seeing my iPad. So my name is Stephen Sukumar, and firstly, thank you for everyone for making the time to attend our webinar on the rolling warehouse solution. Today, I have the pleasure of presenting a live demo of one of our use cases in and around the rolling warehouse. Today's use case is going to be looking at automatic stock replenishment. Today, we're viewing my iPad, and I am acting as a service resource or a field technician. As a field technician, you can see I have my work orders, I know where I'm going, and as part of my duties, I'm going out to a customer to actually install some parts, in this case, a fuse. And looking at our automatic replenishment use case, we're going to see how our solution interacts with others, such as Financial Force OPI, to actually replenish and create relevant product requests in order to fulfill and maintain minimum levels of our inventory. So with that, we're going to get into it. We're on the schedule view here. I have one job scheduled. We're going to open that up. And this is just your typical field service interface. We're going to go out here onto products, and we're going to check our products required. Firstly, this is just a neat thing in and around field service, where it does hold inventory management capabilities on the solution on the mobile device. This allows field resources to maintain their inventory on their truck. And what I'm about to do here is actually consume 4 fuses as part of this work order. So the system is telling us that 4 fuses were required, and I'm out here as a technician. I'm going to go ahead and add that. And by clicking done, we're going to have the system prompt us for exactly making sure we're consuming 4 materials here. You can see this is actually coming from Alan Reed's truck, and he currently has 5 fuses in stock. By giving this a save, this is now going to create the product consume, and this is actually going to kick up many back-end processes on Financial Force OPI to maintain our stock level. So what happened? Alan had 5 fuses on his truck, and as part of this work order, he had just consumed 4. That means he would only have 1 remaining. Now, rather than Alan manually going and creating a request, or perhaps instead at the end of the day, when Alan parks his truck at the warehouse, we might have a clerk do a scan on his inventory and pick out the parts necessary. Here now, to provide service excellence and to provide that new level of customer experience, we're automating this procedure. The system understands what the minimum and maximum thresholds are for Alan's van. And what has happened is automatically a request has been put out. Firstly, if I go out here to my feed on the work order, you can see, just giving that a refresh, we can see that things have been consumed. And down here, you can see that there actually has been some updates. If I go out here and if I edit this post, you can see that a product request for 5 fuses has actually been created for Alan. So automatically, field service has passed that information of what has been consumed and then relayed that over to our inventory management system, our ERP, to ensure that we will have the equivalent stock moving forward for our day. And so going over to our inventory tab here, I'm going to click on product requests. I'm going to go here to all of them. Just give this a quick refresh. And you're going to see that we have some product requests available. I'm going to go specifically into this one. And we're going to see that we are requesting 5 fuses. And by viewing the details, we can actually, oh, I gotta go here. And then viewing the details here, we can actually see that the source location is coming from Excelsior Warehouse. This is going to go to Alan Reed's truck, and the lead time here is 2 days. So all of this happened in an automated fashion. We passed the information of what's been consumed, the actual values, over to Financial Force OPI. OPI had a back-end process to scan all of the warehouses, first starting with the one that Alan might typically go to, the warehouse closest to Alan. And in this case, that is Excelsior. The warehouse found that it did have the stock for the fuse. It has reserved and allocated 5 here for Alan, and he can now go pick up that stock in about 2 days. So really, we are adding more capabilities to our field service solution by hooking and integrating on platform with the Financial Force OPI solution. What are some of the benefits? Firstly, Alan no longer needs to keep track of his stock. He's no longer calling back to the office to see if there's availability. There's no need to put in the request. This is all happening automatically. And on the inverse side, looking at the warehouse management as a warehouse clerk, this is now simplifying their work. There's no longer the need to open up truck doors and open up bins and understand what parts are missing. The system has already identified that. It's now just a matter of the warehouse clerk going out, picking up 5 fuses over here at Excelsior and putting them in the bin for Alan to pick up in 2 days. This is how we're providing further service excellence and providing that new digital experience for customers and businesses. I want to thank you for your time, and hopefully you enjoyed this live demo. Back to you, Matt.
Stephen, actually, I'm just going to pause. There was, we had a participant that asked a question. What if it's 3 weeks out? How do you know? It says 2 is days, but I'm going to say, how do you know the days?
Yeah, that's a great question. So really, that's where Financial Force OPI shines as a solution. It has all of the inventory management. It understands which suppliers might be providing the fuse, and it typically understands what that standard delivery date is from perhaps a supplier. So we're taking a look, and in this case, it's a fuse, and it's just letting us know that it's going to take about 2 days to get that material from the supplier. We can imagine if this lead time was actually 0, that might identify that the product or the part is actually available at the warehouse. This would have let Alan know that he can drive over at the end of his day or maybe perhaps on his break to pick up the fuses as it is readily available at the warehouse. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Stephen.
Wonderful. Back to you, Matt.
Thank you for the demo, Stephen. That was fantastic. Right now, it gets me thinking about the use case and some of my background, and actually one of the areas where Diabsolut aligns with Angelique quite a bit, which is a segment that Salesforce refers to as CMT. And CMT is a collection of verticals. Communications, media, and technology is what it stands for. And we just had a very simple use case where we were talking about a fuse. But when I think about CMT, or I think about high tech in general, you've got this requirement around, a lot of parts to service an individual piece of equipment, and a lot of complexity associated with it. So having the right van on the truck at the right time and making sure that from an efficiency standpoint, we're not putting it in the hands of the technician to have to worry about that necessarily is a really big deal. Angelique, I think about, you and your involvement with high-tech customers and CMT in general. Just from a trend standpoint, what are you seeing and hearing about from customers?
Yeah, I think there's a general consensus kind of across comms, media, and high-tech customers that organizations are really kind of shifting more to cost savings as a driver to solutions. But they're really kind of digging deep here and trying to understand how they can do that without sacrificing customer relationships or without a reduction in workforce. we get a little more creative in that aspect. And that can come in a few different avenues. And the first that we're kind of seeing across the board is to reduce those high cost services. Start by reducing truck rolls, adding in maybe some remote service options, some self-service problem solving, virtual sessions with some visual remote assistance, those types of things. But then another avenue is reinventing the service technician. And I think we just saw a great example of that. We're seeing customers really kind of looking at what they're doing and trying to find ways to add efficiencies in that on-site work stream. So how can they balance the necessity to have the right tools and the right parts on hand to, of course, increase that first-time fix rate, eliminate the need for another truck roll, but do that without carrying excess liability, because, of course, that can be extremely, extremely costly. And then another way through that on-site work stream is to help transition that technician into a revenue stream. So allow techs to create quotes on site, be able to upsell the product, cross-sell the product, or even maybe it's services or warranties or whatever it might be. But do that in the pivotal moment where they're on site, face-to-face with the customers, building those valuable relationships.
Makes a ton of sense. And, that's one of the big things that we do when we go to market together is listen, right? And I think collecting that feedback and understanding what's driving a customer's needs and decision-making process is just so critical. And I'll probably put you on the spot a little bit here. You wear the Salesforce badge, but why are customers and why should customers be choosing SFS from Salesforce as the platform of choice?
Yeah, well, first of all, Salesforce Field Service is native to the Salesforce platform. So customers who are already using Salesforce are going to get that connected view of their customer through sales, service, out in the field in that complete customer 360. And then those who are not using Salesforce or the Salesforce platform can benefit greatly from the power of the platform and its extensibility, connecting field service into the rest of their operations with ease. The solution really just adds a ton of value before the technician or the service provider even gets sent out into the field. We start with the back office, right? Field service or Salesforce Field Service is packed with tools that provide operational efficiencies, automation, just improving that back office operation. So think about enhanced scheduling and optimization, ensuring that we're aligning the right resource to the right job each and every time. And we do that by making sure that we're also keeping the business goals and priorities top of mind. So we're, of course, satisfying the customer's needs and making sure that we're adding efficiencies into the business. We have tools like an incredibly powerful dispatch console, and this allows teams to focus on what's important and have that connected view of the customer or the asset all in one single view. So they're not toggling, they're adding their efficiencies. They have that automation all at their fingertips. And the solution is also a key to really help turn what was formerly a cost center into a profit center through those efficiencies in the field with our mobile workers using the mobile device. Automation, guided flows, helping to ensure consistent service, whether it's a new technician or a tenured technician, we're able to help guide them so they're doing the same level of service and providing that outstanding service each and every time. And they have a complete view of the customer in the palm of their hands in that mobile device. And this really makes an impact, right? In completion time, in quality of service, we're decreasing operational costs, and most importantly, we're increasing employee retention. Right now, that is a priority across all industries.
No doubt. That really resonates. I mean, we as a service provider, we see that, that employee retention element just critical right now, and recruiting and hiring the right talent just so difficult. And I think every organization is facing that right now across so many industries and verticals. And I really like how you brought, that customer theme we're hearing about, take out cost, and then you brought the conversation around to the ROI piece as well and map that back to features. And it's one thing I've been really impressed with partnering with Salesforce is just this focus on and this recognition that our operations executives our technical executives from IT, they've got an approval process that they have to follow, and making some of those features and the associated ROI tangible for them, and assisting in that decision-making process, I think Salesforce does a fantastic job at. So Angelique, thank you for your input there. I think it's fantastic. I'm going to shift gears over a little bit to Yvette and on the financial force front. So we've been talking about bringing operational capability kind of forward onto the platform, and at least having the conversation around, you know, the value of an ERP and what it's there to do, and what sort of dynamic we can create in bringing some of that functionality at least forward into a really nice UI where end users are comfortable interacting with the system. Can you talk to us a little bit about the driver? What's driving customers to want to bring those operational capabilities forward versus just relying on the ERP?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks for the question, and thanks for having Financial Force on today. Really happy to be here. And absolutely, right, customers are realizing the many benefits of bringing all of these capabilities onto a single platform rather than having these live in disparate systems, which can bring a lot of disconnects, as you know, because there's really a lot of moving parts to this process, right? And what's really attractive to them is simplifying all the integration points. You talked about that earlier, you know, not having to worry about their IT stack, the technology, not having to worry about all the maintenance involved when it comes to these complex and costly integrations, right? So instead, they can really focus on serving their customers, right? Delivering a more positive customer experience. And so when you have a single solution all on one platform, customers really do get the full picture here. So from an order and inventory management perspective, we support the activities of procuring the item or the parts that are needed for the technician to do the job. And once he or she has those parts, it's all about how do you store these? How do you track them? Or in other words, the inventory component of that. And so the ability to get those real-time views into inventory, know exactly what you have, know what's on the way, knowing how much did that item or that part cost you that was used in that job. These are really key pain points that we're hearing that we solve for, right? And having that full end-to-end picture is really critical. So, you know, going back to your question again, in terms of what's driving customers to wanting this to be all on a single platform, I think it can really be summed up in three key ways. The first is time, right? And that's how quickly can they get the information that they need. Number two is visibility. And this is all about, you know, having that ability to get accurate information in real time. And the third is margin and profitability, right? So understanding the cost that's associated with that part so you can get true margin visibility and really have the information that you need to drive profit growth and really customer satisfaction overall.
That makes a ton of sense, right? And there's, as we engage with customers, just in the more broad sort of field service perspective, there's almost always the conversation around the process behind order, inventory management. I'm going to say more often than not, it's a pain point. And you raised a few good pain points. What's driving those pain points? How are customers managing the inventory and order process today that you know you hear about most frequently?
Yeah, well, there's different ways they are managing this today, and it really depends on the situation. So it can be a very manual process, as you know, where field technicians, for example, they might be trying to manage this themselves. So a different couple things here, right? So if they've identified the parts that are necessary to complete the job, and the part is stored in their van, for example, they've got the part on hand. It's fairly straightforward. The technician has what he or she needs, drives out to the job, completes the job. If the parts are in a warehouse, the item then needs to be transferred from the warehouse loaded onto the truck. Now, if they don't have the part at all, then they've got that step of putting in a requisition. They've got to request the part. Then they've got to go through the process of a purchase order. Now, here's, you've got some pain points here, right? If these systems are disparate, it can cause some challenges if your systems are not all on platform. So that means there could be lag time, right? Instead of just simply clicking on a request button that you might be able to see on the same field service interface, now there's that extra step. Stephen highlighted this too, right? You got to log into whatever system you're using. You got to call someone in accounting who could place that order for you. So again, that extra time involved, the delays, the redundant data entry, these are all major, pain points associated with doing this manually, right? You've got possible fulfillment errors that you got to consider as well. So this is really how we are complementary to field service and asset management from that perspective. The fact that we are all on platform with that same interface, it really does make it a lot easier and seamless for customers. They get that full picture. They can see everything from start to finish, and we can support the associated financial transactions as well. And it's also worth noting too that all of this helps technicians, right? They can now be more super efficient, which you highlighted earlier. So whether they're in the office or if they're on the go, they've got that real-time visibility that they need to complete the job and provide a positive customer experience.
That's awesome. And it gets me thinking about, Angelique brought it up before too, right? The theme of employee retention. And I don't think there's too many technicians out there that want to be in the business of either going into a different system or, perhaps, going through some sort of manual process. We hear about customers still trying to figure out how to do this on spreadsheets and make it work. And it's tough, right? But what you want to do is you want to make your technicians' lives as easy as possible. And we are firm believers that the Salesforce platform interface is one that we can train on, easily skill up on. Salesforce, Financial Force, this product set, the training resources are best in class, and they enable us as a partner to set a customer up for success in a way that the competition just doesn't. So we're big proponents, and I appreciate your thoughts, Yvette, and I appreciate your expertise as well, and you taking the time to share with the audience today. I'm going to go to our partner at ServiceMax and Asset-360. Ed, let's talk a little bit about, I'm going to start out with the same question I started out with Angelique around like industry trends. What you bring to the table is really powerful in Asset-360. What are you hearing about from customers as you go to market today?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. It's rather interesting that the trends we're hearing about, I've got 3 that we've recently heard about getting a lot of attention, really aligned with what we've heard from the other speakers, only maybe from a different perspective. And so one of those is managing a very complex bill of material and tracking everything that goes on with that asset. The other is managing resource shortages. We heard that technicians are hard to find, hard to keep these days, and also some supply chain challenges, right? We know that parts are not coming in when they should be. And so how can we do better with the parts that we have? And so if we look at those individually, kind of managing that complex as maintained bill of material, right? Once an asset goes into service, traditionally, the service organization would track all the components that go into that asset. But many times that bill of material does not get updated if service has been performed, right? A failed component has been taken off, a different one has been put in, maybe it's got a different revision. And so we talked earlier about the call center agent looking at that asset and also the technician expecting what to see when they arrive on site. If that bill of material is not up to date, everyone there is making perhaps incorrect decisions, or maybe the technician is showing up with the wrong parts because he was misinformed about how that asset is actually configured. The other thing that we're seeing on bill of materials these days, we've got a lot more connected devices out there. So we traditionally always had hardware that was part of the asset, but now we're starting to see software versions, communication devices that are also part of the asset. So it's a little different way of managing you have to manage those versions and communication devices a little bit differently than managing hard assets. The other side of the bill of material is that many times when we build an asset, we buy pumps, we buy motors, we buy generators, and those are coming from suppliers, right? We're buying that inventory through procurement, and many times we get a supplier warranty that comes along with that. If that part fails and comes back in and you're not tracking that supplier warranty, you may scrap that part, you may buy a new one, and therefore you're increasing your warranty costs when you could have made a supplier claim. So we track that supplier claim on the bill of material as well. So the other I mentioned here was resource shortages and technicians. Really, what we're hearing from service managers is, how can I leverage my asset data to scale my technicians? And we talked about the asset information, the accurate asset bill of material. There's a lot of asset attributes that go along with that, technical attributes, coverage attributes. And if a technician doesn't have access to that accurate information, they may have to make a second visit, which means we have another truck roll. It lowers their productivity. And so therefore, you may have to hire more technicians as opposed to getting more productivity out of the technicians that you have. The third one I mentioned there was the supply chain challenge, and Asset 360 has some effect on that as well. We're tracking all those parts, and Stephen showed us how the parts can be consumed. But as I mentioned many times, those parts can be returned and refurbished and then put back in that spares inventory pool. So Asset 360 adds to the mobile, actually, a return material authorization functionality, so that as they're consuming those parts, we can notify the technician that, yeah, these should be coming back in, and go ahead and issue that return material authorization right away. So we get it back in the depot, and the logistics manager has visibility to what's coming in, what needs to go out. And so therefore, you're not increasing that spares pool of inventory, you're managing to what you have and reducing that cost.
That's great, Ed. I mean, clearly bringing that asset-centric expertise, right? And when you talk about complex use cases, that's something we see all the time, especially in the space when we think and talk about, you know, high tech and telco, and these are tough businesses to operate in from a service perspective. And that idea of asset centricity, ultimately, that's going to be the make or break from a CSAT standpoint, your ability to go back and do business with your with our customer's customer or our customer's customer, right? It's critical that we're able to execute, and we have that visibility to the asset, associated components, and what have you. And I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit, and really how Asset 360 is solving for some of the complexities and problems, and just how you're positioning the conversation with customers, Ed.
Sure. First of all, Asset 360, as everybody else said, is on platform. We've been a Salesforce partner for about 15 years now. And so Asset 360 primarily delivers visibility, of course, into the assets, contracts, warranties, return material authorizations, depot repair functions. And what we start to enable service and organizations to do, most of the time they've been in a reactive mode, right? Somebody calls in, I need a repair, we send a technician. By having better information, we can get more proactive about the services that you're delivering, and eventually try to move to an outcome-based type of service model. So in conjunction with the other solutions in the rolling warehouse, it really enables that possibility. But I had specifically 3 different areas to talk about that really add to the rolling warehouse functionality, but address the 3 trends that we just started to hear about. And they're really around that asset information, entitlement management, and service analytics. So Asset 360 manages that asset hierarchy, as we were just talking about. And we start to say that while Salesforce manages the customer 360, you're getting an Asset 360 along with that. So a complete view of everything that's going on with the customer. But that as maintained bill of material can be maintained by a technician on the mobile device, and enables those service teams, again, to have that proper information on the mobile app or from a customer service standpoint. And again, that accurate information helps increase your first-time fix rate and lower your mean time to repair. The other view that we've added around the asset is something we call the asset timeline. Many times service leaders and technicians will say, I want to see everything that happened to that asset cradle to grave, right? From the time it went into service to the time it was retired. So we've put in one view, a holistic view of everything that has happened to that asset in the past, but also you can see what's going to happen to it in the future. And so you can see contracts there, warranties, extended warranties, any kind of cases that were logged against the asset, remote diagnostics that were done, warranties, service orders, preventative maintenance, all the activity, and you can scroll back and forth and get a terrific view of what's going on with that asset. So very informative. As I mentioned also, we're seeing a lot of connected devices today, so that IoT information that's coming in, we can store selectively what you'd like to store about that information. We call that technical attributes. So by keeping that information, let's take it, for example, a pump. What heat temperature is it running at? What's the flow rate? Is there any kind of vibration? And is there any variability in that over time? So if we see over 6 months that that pump is starting to lose its flow rate, but the PM isn't due for the next 8 months, we might move that PM up based upon the operating characteristics and those technical attributes, and catch that asset and fix it before it fails. There's one last piece around the asset that we refer to as product service campaigns. And they allow you to create mass work orders, sometimes for many different reasons. Popular one is recalls, right? We got 1,000 pumps from a supplier, and now they tell us there's a defect. So for recalls, change orders, product modifications, upgrades, but also for sales opportunities. We might want to look at older assets that are in field and generate a sales opportunity, which then flows over to sales, where you create a quote. And now we present that to the customer as an upgrade opportunity as well. But what it allows you to do is look at those technical attributes and through Boolean expressions based upon how old they are, serial number ranges, all different types of characteristics, and generate hundreds or 1,000 work orders or opportunities all at once, and then manage the completion of that product service campaign. So behind all the work orders and the assets, Asset 360 is extremely strong in the entitle management area. And we have a entitlement and management engine which works in an automated fashion to determine by rules for that asset, what's the appropriate warranty coverage? What are they entitled to? If they have a contract, how many emergency service calls do they get? Are there special pricing on certain parts? So this helps prevent the unwarranted free giveaway of labor parts, loaners, services that if you didn't have that automatic entitlement in place, we might deliver services that the customer is not entitled to, therefore affecting our profitability, as everybody else has mentioned. And what we found actually is that the average contract leakage for the average service organization is about 24%. But for those on the lower end, it can be as high as 40% of warranty cost. And if you just do a quick number in your head, everybody's doing this right now. If I could cut 25% out of my warranty costs, that would be a huge return for me. The other area that the contract entitlement engine comes into play is that automatic entitlement. So let's take, for example, when Stephen was consuming those fuses, there might have been a contract coverage behind them. There might have been a special price employed there. They might be free up until a certain level. They might get 100 fuses free throughout the contract. So the entitlement engine will look and automatically determine the right price, the right usage level. And so when the technician is concluding that work order and doing the debrief, we automatically, Asset 360 will calculate that right price. And the customer, when they sign off on that work order, can see that, yep, that was based upon my warranty or upon my contract. I'm sure that I'm getting the right price. And from a technician standpoint, right, everybody said we want to make life easy for the technician. They don't have to go and look for the right price. The customer is ensured that they're getting the right one. And so it makes for quick work on determining the right price. And again, all this information is available on the browser, on the mobile app as well. And the last area I talked about was service analytics, again, that everybody else has mentioned. We have some very specific ones around assets, which take into account the costs and the revenue side of the asset. So we've created some advanced analytics using Tableau CRM. And one of the things that our customers are always asking about is, I have some assets that can be out in the field that can be 10, 15, 20 years old. I also have some that are 2 years old. I'm charging the same for that service contract for both of those assets, but how do I know that the 10-year-old one isn't costing me more? So we've created a cost to serve analytic that calculates that difference. So you can see by customer, by asset, by geography, what it's costing you, among other different types of analytics, but this is one that's huge, which also helps you mine that asset database and say, which ones should I be trying to replace, or at least maybe I should be charging more for that contract on the 10-year-old one, and I might be losing money. So those three areas, the asset characteristics, the entitlement management, service analytics, really key to adding to the whole rolling warehouse package and endorsing some of the facts that some of the others have mentioned as well, Matt.
Thank you very much, Ed. And there's a couple of bullets that really resonate with me. And I am a little bit biased because I'm a high-tech guy, but I think back to I'm going to date myself a bit, but almost a couple of decades in high tech and selling beside partners, some of the industry heavyweights. And I think about the solutions they're going to market with and the complexity, as you mentioned, of those solutions. That theme of, having the product hierarchy capability, the parts hierarchy capability. And in some cases, you tied it to entitlement, where an entitlement within a component may be different than the entitlement on the full part. That level of intelligence and preventing warranty leakage and back to Angelique's theme she kicked off with cost savings. I just think that's so important to customers right now. Both customers that are servicing their customers as well as the end user customers who, deserve to have a partner with them that understands what's been sold, what they own, and to be able to execute to SLAs. So that's a big one for me. And then there's actually a piece that I'm going to pull out that ties to a question from the audience. Actually, before I go there, I want to mention the analytics piece though, because you tied that to Tableau, which is a Salesforce product. And to me, that just shows how interconnected this solution, or frankly, other solutions on platform can be, because now we're talking about multiple products interacting on the same platform, but we're leveraging the power of Salesforce Tableau to report across the full solution. And to me, that's just huge, because now you're into this theme of, a lot of customers are relying on very expensive external BI systems to reach into disparate systems to do that. I think that's a great point you raise, Ed, and one that I really hope resonates with the audience. Now, there was a question from the field, the audience, and you brought up towards the end of your talk track, Ed, this theme of being able to quote, right? And so the question from the audience ties into that. And I'm going to throw this question to Angelique, actually, because I think this is important. The question is around field resources being responsible for quoting customers while on site, and how would we solve for that on platform? So Angelique, can you take that one and speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. We have an incredible solution, and it's called CPQ. It's native to the Salesforce platform, and that can be a natural extension of the field service mobile application while in the field. CPQ allows users to be able to create accurate quotes fast. So whether you're in sales and service in the field, there's validation and guardrails and approval processes baked right in to help users flow through that guided selling process to really maximize those upsell opportunities and reduce that potential lost revenue.
That's awesome. Yeah, not to harp on it, but my days in high tech sales, I called it a couple decades, but wish I had CPQ at my fingertips. I can remember doing cut and pastes and unvalidated server builds and network builds. I'm sure a lot of people on the phone can relate to it. That was just like literally a Unix-based system from probably sometime in the 1980s. And I got part numbers and plug it in there. And half the time I don't even know what I'm selling at the end of the day because I'm blind from staring at this orange screen, right? So no, that's really cool. It shows the extensibility of the platform and just the capability to extend what we're talking about here. There's another one I'll turn to Yvette, and this is also around the ability to extend the capability here. We have customers that are running projects as well. And the question is, if we're running projects in the field, Yvette, how do we address that? And I think it's a theme really around the whole project management piece, but within that project, the requirement for time of day scheduling as well. So the right skill sets, the right people at the right place, at the right time. How do we address that?
Yeah, sure, Matt. So for our customers today, they leverage PS Cloud for that. And that's, all about delivering project-based work, as you mentioned. So what that means is organizations, they'll be able to get that full view of their business because they're able to connect all the aspects of a project to the customer record in Salesforce. So what are the benefits with doing that, right? They benefit from having those real-time insights on different project statuses. They get information on resource availability, which helps them schedule the right people onto the right projects when you need them. And so essentially what you get is that complete visibility. They can optimize resource planning, and project managers can get the insights that they need into overall project profitability as well.
Fantastic. And we're seeing a lot of customers where business units are converging, and maybe the project group was in a silo over here, and the in-day service group was in a silo over here. And there's this perspective, and it's actually customers being brilliant, where they're starting to look at how they're managing both pieces of the business and saying, how can we bring best practices together and start to standardize on how we do this? And I think the theme is we've got a pretty good answer for that. And again, all on platform. So thank you, Yvette. That's fantastic feedback. Stephen, we've got a couple of questions around themes that are of the more technical ilk, right? I think we've got some folks here that want to hear a little bit deeper. What are we really doing, and what does it look like? Because we have multiple products in play. Can you kind of take the microphone here for a second and speak to some of the more technical members on the phone call, maybe a little bit?
Yeah, certainly, Matt. So there's definitely a slew of products included within the rolling warehouse solution. We started off with core being field service and financial force OPI, which is order, procurement, and inventory management. We kind of see that as the front facing and the back facing, right? Everything from the technician and dispatcher ensuring the parts are on the work order, getting the parts to the right place, all these beautiful things we talked about. And then really having OPI be that back engine, right, to support all of this data being processed, and lead times and purchasing and procurement and all of that jazz, right? Maybe it might be best if I actually share a diagram I have ready. So let me just prop that up on the screen.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So this is more or less just one use case that we showed. As some can imagine, rolling warehouse, it's quite complex, right? There are different moving parts as part of the solution. So just to hone in here on the automatic replenishment, we could see the orange boxes is pretty much what I went through here for today's demo. Taking a recap, we have the service resource, the field technician. They went ahead and they consumed some products. And then the system realized that they are short, that they fell beneath the minimum. And so by that virtue, automatically a product request was created, and then we set all the details. I want to highlight the green arrow here. The green arrow is what we consider integration, but it's not integration, right? Because we're on the same platform. So that really allows us to take the object models within field service and to pass them along into OPI without ever writing a line of code. It's just passing him information. And when OPI gets that, similarly to how I answered that question earlier, it's just going through its gears Do I have the product available at a warehouse? Which warehouse? Is it near to Allen? Do I not have the product? And if I don't, how do I go about procuring that? So that's where you can kind of see a bit of this light orange line here, where we're going through this notion of understanding where the warehouse stock is. And even if the warehouse is below the minimum, let alone the truck, right? We want to ensure that our warehouse is properly stocked as well. And if the warehouse is below threshold, then we're going to go through with our procurement and our purchasing, and you can see suppliers down here as well, and leading into all of that. So you can really see just with field service and Financial Force OPI, it's quite a complex and robust system. And we have plans to add Asset 360 to really talk about what Ed was mentioning: entitlements, contract managements, warranty managements. And we can really see how the solution might extend even further with what Angelique was talking about, CPQ, to actually upsell and cross-sell when we're on site with the customer. This is highly valuable for telecommunications companies, home security companies, home services, HVAC. We can see a lot of use cases there. So really, it's taking a best of breed of what field service does, what OPI does, what CPQ does, and really highlighting the strengths of that solution by filling in some of the data and processes from the strengths of other solutions. Might be a bit long-winded, but yes, our rolling warehouse solution encompasses many different Salesforce platform solutions.
Stephen, that was awesome. And for anyone who couldn't tell, Stephen's a software engineer and I am not, but he has this way, of being able to articulate things so that even I understand it. So in the background of all this, I'm talking about it, but it's Stephen and his team that are like the brainchilds behind this sort of thing. And it is pretty cool to know that some of this stuff, even a few years back, I just wouldn't have even wanted to touch. And I would have thought Stephen's point about a lot of integrations, a lot of it real time to address the kind of business needs that we're talking about. And now in a world where, you know, at the very least, let's talk about how we take some of that cost and complexity out. And that's what we're really trying to drive towards here. So thank you, Stephen. That was awesome.
My pleasure, Matt.
Erica, I think we're at about, what, 7 minutes left or so. So, you know, I'm gonna hand you the mic. I think there's some closeout stuff we're doing here, but just final words from me. I mean, thank you, everybody. Thank you to the speakers that participated. From my perspective, and most importantly, the attendees. Thanks for taking some of your valuable time with us today. Erica?
Yes, thank you, Matt. Yes, thank you to everybody for being here today with us. So I think we answered most of everyone's questions. I know there were some questions that were probably required a more in-depth demo. Like we said, we'll be sending out the recording of this session to all the participants. We'll also provide you with some contact information if you want to reach out to us directly so that we can answer maybe some of those more technical questions on the capabilities and features of the rolling warehouse solution. Dominic, if you can pop up the last slide, just to let everybody know that Diabsolut, Financial Force, and ServiceMax, obviously with Salesforce, will be at Dreamforce this year. So if you do want to know more and you are attending, we encourage you to come meet with us as part of the post-webinar reach out as well. We'll let you know how to book time with us if you're interested in meeting with us one-to-one. And we hope that you really enjoyed this webinar, and please be on the lookout. We'll be sharing the recording with you within the next day or two. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.